I am Jerome, a 34-year-old software engineer who was married to Melissa for 3.5 years before I found definitive evidence of her affair with her coworker Alex on her laptop. Instead of confronting her, I made the decision to completely disappear from her life without any warning or explanation. I simply gathered my essential belongings one morning after she left for work and vanished. A year later, she somehow tracked me down and showed up at my new workplace across the country. Before I share how I discovered my wife's betrayal and why I chose to vanish without a word, let me know where you are watching from in the comments, and subscribe if you have ever had to make a difficult decision to protect yourself. I met Melissa 5 years ago at my college friend Tyler's housewarming party. I had almost skipped the event after a long week of coding, but Tyler insisted I needed to get out more. The moment I saw Melissa laughing in the kitchen, a glass of red wine in hand and head thrown back in genuine amusement at something someone had said, I was captivated. She had this magnetic energy that drew people in with curly brown hair, and the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room when she directed it your way. We struck up a conversation over the cheese board, discovering our shared interests in hiking, true crime podcasts, and authentic Italian cuisine. The connection was instant and unlike anything I had experienced before. We exchanged numbers, and I texted her the next day, breaking my usual 3-day rule. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown where we talked for hours until the staff began stacking chairs around us. Our relationship progressed quickly after that. We moved in together, just 6 months after meeting, combining our book collections and arguing good-naturedly about whose coffee maker would claim counter space. At the 1-year mark, during a sunrise hike to our favorite mountain peak, I proposed. She cried, said yes, and we celebrated with the small bottle of champagne I had lugged up the trail in my backpack. We had a beautiful, intimate wedding ceremony in her hometown of Portland. Just 70 guests, all close friends and family. Melissa wore a simple lace dress, and I remember thinking as she walked down the aisle that I had never seen anything so perfect in my life. We wrote our own vows, promising honesty, loyalty, and partnership. The irony of those promises is not lost on me now. The first 2 years of our marriage were nearly perfect, at least from my perspective. We spent weekends exploring hiking trails, renovating our modest starter home, and hosting dinner parties for our growing circle of friends. We talked about starting a family in the near future, even designating one of our spare bedrooms as a future nursery. Things began to shift during our 3rd year of marriage. I received a significant promotion at my software company, which came with more responsibility, longer hours, and occasional business trips. Melissa was supportive, telling me she was proud of my accomplishments and understood the demands of my new position. Around the same time, Melissa also made a career change, leaving her job in event planning for a position at Aero Marketing, a fast-growing firm in our city. She was excited about the opportunity and the creative team she would be working with. She frequently mentioned her new colleagues, particularly Alex, the creative director, who had personally selected her for the position. The first changes were subtle. Melissa set up a new passcode on her phone, something we had never done previously in our relationship. She began staying late at work for client events several times a week. Her texts during these evenings became sporadic and vague. When she came home, she would shower immediately, something that was never part of her routine before. I noticed these changes but pushed away the rising suspicion. Melissa was my wife, my partner, the woman I trusted completely. Surely there was an innocent explanation for these behavioral shifts. Perhaps the pressure of her new job was affecting her. Perhaps I was being paranoid due to my own work stress. The first time I voiced my concerns was after a holiday party at her marketing firm. I had watched her interact with Alex throughout the evening, observed the inside jokes, the lingering touches, the way their eyes found each other across the room. There was a chemistry there that made me profoundly uncomfortable. On the drive home, I gently asked if there was something going on between them. Her reaction was disproportionately defensive. "Are you serious right now? He is my boss, Jerome. Of course we have a good rapport. That is how successful professional relationships work." When I mentioned the touching the private jokes, she rolled her eyes. "You are being ridiculous. Maybe if you were not traveling so much for work, you would not be inventing problems in our marriage." The accusation stung, and I apologized for bringing it up. In retrospect, this was classic gaslighting, making me question my own perceptions and feel guilty for expressing legitimate concerns. Over the next few months, the distance between us grew. Melissa became irritable when I asked about her day. Our intimate life dwindled from several times a week to barely once a month, always with an excuse of headaches or exhaustion. When I suggested a weekend getaway to reconnect, she claimed she could not take time away from work projects. I tried everything I could think of to bridge the growing gap in our relationship. I cooked her favorite meals, sent flowers to her office, suggested couples therapy. She dismissed each effort with various excuses, making me feel increasingly desperate and confused. Despite the mounting evidence, I might have remained in denial indefinitely, if not for a single Saturday morning in April. Melissa had gone for her usual morning run, leaving her laptop open on the kitchen counter. She had been working late the night before and had fallen asleep on the couch while finishing a presentation. I had never been the type of husband to snoop through my wife's private communications. I believed in trust as the foundation of marriage. But as I passed by her laptop, a notification banner slid onto the screen. A message from Alex. "Last night was amazing. Cannot wait to see you again on Tuesday." My hand hovered over the trackpad, my principles warring with my need to know the truth. In the end, self-preservation won out over respect for privacy. I clicked on the message notification. The conversation thread that opened before me confirmed every fear I had been pushing away. The messages between Melissa and Alex were explicit, detailing their physical relationship that had apparently been going on for over 8 months. There were intimate photos. They had exchanged hotel receipts from weekends I had been traveling for business and plans for future rendezvous. I scrolled back through months of their communications, my hands shaking and my stomach churning. There were messages from weekends when Melissa had claimed to be visiting her sister in Seattle. Instead, she had been in a boutique hotel downtown with Alex. There were references to times they had been together in our home, in our bed while I was away on business trips. The most painful messages were the ones where they discussed me. Alex asking if I suspected anything. Melissa assuring him I was clueless and too trusting. They even joked about how I had once complimented Alex's marketing ideas at a company event, unaware he was sleeping with my wife. I sat at the kitchen counter for nearly an hour, reading message after message until I felt physically sick. When I heard the front door handle turn, signaling Melissa's return from her run, I quickly closed the laptop and retreated to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The man looking back at me appeared shell-shocked, as if he had just walked away from an explosion. "Are you okay?" Melissa called through the bathroom door. "You look pale." "Just a stomach bug," I managed to reply, the irony of my deception not lost on me. For the rest of that day, I went through the motions of normal life. We grocery shopped, watched a movie, ordered takeout. I responded to her questions, automatically smiled when appropriate, all while a cold clarity was crystallizing within me. I knew with absolute certainty that our marriage was over. The only question remaining was how I would exit. I considered the confrontation route, imagining the satisfaction of calling out her betrayal, watching her crumble under the weight of evidence. But the thought of the inevitable denials, the tearful explanations, the promises to change, all felt exhausting and pointless. The trust was irrevocably broken. No conversation would repair what had been destroyed. That night, while Melissa slept beside me in our bed, I stared at the ceiling and formulated my exit strategy. I would need somewhere temporary to stay access to funds she could not track, and a plan for collecting essential documents and belongings without raising suspicion. The next day was Sunday, and I suggested we do our own things, citing work I needed to catch up on. While Melissa went for brunch with friends, I drove to a bank across town and opened a new account, transferring a portion of my personal savings that would sustain me for a few months. I contacted a former colleague in Denver who had been trying to recruit me for years, inquiring about immediate job opportunities. I located and secured copies of my birth certificate, passport, social security card, and other essential documents, hiding them in my gym bag. I researched temporary housing options in Denver and made a reservation at an extended stay hotel under my middle name, Michael. Monday passed in the same surreal haze of normalcy. I went to work, submitted my resignation effective, immediately citing a family emergency. I cleared out my personal items without drawing attention, told my closest work friend I would be unreachable for a while, and returned home to find Melissa already in bed claiming a migraine. Tuesday morning, I waited until Melissa left for work. I listened for her car to pull out of the driveway, watched through the blinds, as she drove away completely unaware that this ordinary morning was the last time she would see me. With mechanical efficiency, I packed 2 suitcases, with only what I would immediately need: clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and a few irreplaceable personal mementos, like the watch my grandfather had given me. I left everything else behind, including most of my clothes, books, and electronics. I did not want Melissa to immediately realize I had gone for good. The last thing I did before leaving was place my wedding ring on her nightstand. No note, no explanation. The symbolism would be clear enough once she realized I was not coming back. I took one final look at the home we had built together, now tainted by her betrayal. I felt a strange calm as I loaded my suitcases into my car. The anxiety and confusion of the past months had been replaced by the certainty of my decision. Without looking back, I pulled out of the driveway and drove away from my life, with Melissa heading toward an uncertain but necessary new beginning. The first few weeks in Denver passed in a fog of practicality. I stayed at the Woodspring Suites, a budget extended stay hotel on the outskirts of the city. The room was Spartan, with a kitchenette, a desk, and a bed that had seen better days. But it served its purpose as a temporary landing spot while I recalibrated my life. My former colleague Ryan came through with a job offer at his tech startup. The position paid less than my previous role, but it offered what I needed: most immediate employment and a fresh start. I introduced myself to new coworkers as Michael, my middle name, not out of deception but from a desire to create distance from my past identity. I executed what amounted to a digital disappearance. I deleted all social media accounts, changed my email addresses, and purchased a new phone with a Colorado number. I withdrew cash for most purchases to avoid creating an electronic trail. These were not the actions of a criminal, but of a man desperate to cauterize a wound before it could fester further. The hardest part was cutting off contact with mutual friends. I sent brief messages to my closest friends, asking for their understanding, without providing detailed explanations. I knew Melissa would use these connections to try to find me, and I was not ready to be found. Through my brother Marcus, the only family member who knew my exact location, I retained a lawyer to handle the practical aspects of separation. I authorized him to communicate with Melissa regarding financial matters and to initiate divorce proceedings, but with strict instructions never to reveal my whereabouts. Marcus kept me updated on Melissa's reaction. As expected, she was initially confused by my absence, calling hospitals and police stations. Confusion turned to anger when she discovered the wedding ring on her nightstand and realized I had left voluntarily. Anger transformed into panic when days passed without contact. According to Marcus, she hired a private investigator, posted desperate appeals on social media, and showed up at my parents' home in tears, demanding to know where I had gone. My parents, who knew only that I was safe but not where I was, could offer her no information. "She is a mess," Jerry Marcus told me during one of our weekly calls. "Part of me feels sorry for her." "Did she tell you why I might have left?" I asked. "No. She claims to have absolutely no idea. Says things were perfectly fine between you." The continued deception confirmed I had made the right choice. Even now, faced with the consequences of her actions, she could not acknowledge the truth. 6 months after my departure, the divorce was finalized. I never appeared in person, with all proceedings handled through attorneys. Melissa contested nothing, agreeing to a clean split of assets and no ongoing financial entanglements. Perhaps it was guilt, or perhaps she simply wanted the freedom to pursue her relationship with Alex without complications. Gradually, I built the framework of a new life in Denver. I found an apartment in the Highland neighborhood, a modern one-bedroom, with mountain views that bore no resemblance to the craftsman-style home I had shared with Melissa. I adopted a routine of work, regular gym sessions, and weekend hikes in the nearby mountains. The internal work was harder than the external. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Winters, who specialized in betrayal trauma. Our sessions helped me recognize that, while Melissa's choices were not my fault, there were patterns in our relationship. I needed to understand to avoid repeating them. You ignored red flags because you wanted to believe in the marriage you thought you had Dr. Winters observed during one session. That is understandable. But in the future, you need to trust your instincts when they tell you something is wrong. I started journaling, pouring my unfiltered thoughts onto pages no one else would read. I reconnected with old hobbies that had fallen by the wayside during my marriage, playing guitar, mountain biking, cooking elaborate meals for myself. 9 months after leaving, I went on my first date with a woman named Tara, whom I met at a local climbing gym. It was awkward and uncomfortable, and I realized halfway through dinner that I was not ready. I was honest with her about my situation, and she was understanding, suggesting friendship instead of romance. By the 1-year anniversary of my departure, I felt I had finally crossed some invisible threshold. The sharp pain of betrayal had dulled to an occasional ache. I could go days without thinking about Melissa. I had made real friends in Denver, people who knew me as Michael, a software developer who enjoyed outdoor activities and collected vinyl records. I was beginning to believe that chapter of my life was truly closed until the Tuesday morning I walked into the lobby of my office building and saw her sitting in one of the visitor chairs, nervously checking her watch. Melissa, my wife, my ex-wife, the woman I had left without a word, exactly 1 year and 17 days ago. Time seemed to stop as our eyes met across the lobby. Melissa stood slowly, uncertainty written across her face. She looked different, thinner than I remembered, with darker hair cut in a short bob rather than the long curls she had during our marriage. She wore a simple blue dress and clutched a small handbag with white knuckles. My first instinct was to turn and walk out to maintain the clean break I had engineered, but a strange calm settled over me, similar to what I had felt the morning I left our home. I had spent a year rebuilding my life and my sense of self. I was no longer the devastated husband who had fled in silence. Jerome, she said, her voice barely audible across the distance between us. I approached her with measured steps, aware of curious glances from the receptionist and colleagues passing through the lobby. How did you find me? I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. Can we talk somewhere private, please? I nodded curtly and led her outside to a coffee shop on the corner. We ordered and found a table in the back, far from other customers. For several minutes we sat in uncomfortable silence, both studying our cups as if they contained answers to unasked questions. You look good, she finally offered. Healthy. What are you doing here, Melissa? She took a deep breath. First, I want to tell you how I found you. Your brother never betrayed your confidence. Neither did your parents or friends. I waited, saying nothing. It was a combination of things, she continued. A mutual friend mentioned seeing charges from Denver on your old credit card last year before the accounts were separated. Then I saw a review for a hiking trail written by someone with your exact phrasing and writing style. Finally, I found you through a tech conference attendee list. You presented at DevCon last month under the name Michael Jerome Wells. I silently berated myself for the carelessness. In recent months, as the pain had subsided, so had my vigilance. That still does not explain why you are here, I said. Melissa's eyes welled with tears. I needed to understand, to hear from you why you left like that. No note, no explanation, no closure. Do you know what that did to me? A surge of anger rose in me so quickly I had to set my coffee down to keep from spilling it. Do you know what finding those messages did to me? Her face went pale. What messages? I saw everything, Melissa. The texts between you and Alex. The photos. The hotel receipts. The jokes at my expense. I know you were sleeping with him for 8 months before I left, including in our home when I was traveling for work. Her mouth opened and closed without sound, the practiced denial dying on her lips when faced with specific evidence. She looked down at her hands. So you knew, she whispered. Yes. Why did you not confront me? Give me a chance to explain. I laughed without humor. Explain what? How you systematically betrayed me, while gaslighting me about my concerns, how you mocked me to your lover. What possible explanation would have made any difference? Tears spilled down her cheeks now. I do not know. Leaving like that was so extreme. You disappeared from your job, your friends, your whole life. Everyone thought something terrible had happened to you. Something terrible did happen. I discovered my marriage was a lie. We sat in silence again as she wiped her tears. When she spoke again, her voice was small. I made a horrible mistake, Jerome. The affair with Alex, it was selfish and destructive. I got caught up in the excitement, the validation. I compartmentalized it, told myself it was separate from us, from our marriage, but it was not. What happened with Alex, I asked, curious despite myself. She gave a bitter laugh. He ended things 3 months after you left. Said the situation had become too complicated. Apparently I was more appealing as a married woman than as a distraught, abandoned wife. I am not surprised. I have been in therapy, she continued, trying to understand why I would sabotage the good things in my life, why I would hurt someone who only ever treated me with love and respect. I nodded, but offered no comfort. Her journey of self-discovery was her own, separate from me. Jerome, I know this is a lot to ask, but I have spent a year thinking about us, about what I threw away. Is there any possibility, any chance at all that we could try again? I am not the same person who betrayed you. I have changed. I looked at the woman across from me, trying to see the person I had once loved enough to marry. But that connection was gone, severed by her betrayal and my necessary reinvention. No, I said simply, that is not possible. Because you cannot forgive me. Because I am not the same person either. The man who left that morning no longer exists. I had to rebuild myself from scratch after what happened, and the life I have created does not have room for the kind of pain you brought into it. Her shoulders slumped. I understand. Do you want to know the strangest part? I said. I am actually grateful now. If I had not found those messages, I might have spent years in a marriage with someone who did not truly love or respect me. Discovering your affair set me free in a way. She flinched at the word grateful, but nodded slowly. For what it is worth, I am truly sorry, Jerome. Not just for the affair, but for making you feel that disappearing was your only option. I accept your apology, I said, surprised to realize I meant it. But this needs to be the end. We have both said what needed to be said. I want you to leave Denver today and not try to contact me again. She looked as if she wanted to argue, but eventually nodded. Can I ask one last thing? Are you happy now? I considered the question carefully. I am at peace. I am building a good life. And yes, most days I am happy. We finished our coffees in silence. As we stood to leave, she hesitated, perhaps hoping for a hug or some physical acknowledgement. I extended my hand instead, offering a handshake, as I would to any former acquaintance. She took it briefly, her fingers cold against my palm. Goodbye, Jerome. Goodbye, Melissa. I watched her walk away down the street, waiting until she disappeared around a corner before returning to my office. I expected to feel shaken by the encounter, but instead found a surprising sense of completion, as if a story left unfinished had finally reached its conclusion. In the year since leaving my marriage, I had learned several difficult but valuable lessons. I learned that sometimes walking away is braver than staying, that maintaining self-respect is more important than maintaining appearances, that starting over, while terrifying, can lead to authentic happiness that would otherwise remain undiscovered. I had also learned the importance of trusting my instincts. The signs of Melissa's infidelity had been there for months, but I had ignored my intuition in favor of believing what I wanted to be true. Never again would I discount that internal warning system. 3 months after Melissa's visit, I met Elaine at a friend's dinner party. She was a pediatric occupational therapist with a quick laugh and thoughtful questions. Our relationship developed slowly, deliberately, with careful communication and clear boundaries. I told her about my past early on, not wanting secrets between us. That must have taken enormous strength, she said when I finished the story, to walk away completely and build a new life. With Elaine, I experienced what a relationship based on mutual respect and genuine care felt like. We had disagreements, of course, but they were always addressed directly, rather than buried beneath resentment or deception. The pain of betrayal never completely disappears. There are still moments when a particular song or scent triggers memories of my life with Melissa. But these moments no longer derail me. They are merely echoes of a past that helped shape who I am today. In the end, I learned that forgiveness is not about excusing what was done to you. It is about releasing the anger so it does not consume you. I have forgiven Melissa not for her sake, but for my own. The energy once spent on anger is better directed toward building the life I truly deserve. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship or situation that was damaging your self-worth? What gave you the strength to make that difficult decision? Share your experience in the comments below. And remember, you are not alone in Claston, facing these painful crossroads. If my story resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a like so it can reach others who might need to hear it. Consider sharing with someone who is struggling to find the courage to choose themselves. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you the clarity and strength to protect your peace, even when doing so requires the most difficult choices.